All right, so if you're looking to build a budget watch collection, sooner or later you're going to be tempted to see how low you can push it and try and find what's the absolute cheapest watch you can buy that actually gives you some semblance of quality. And in that case, the place you want to go is you want to start looking at watches that are made in China. And so I've picked up a couple of watches from Megir, which is one of those really low budget Chinese watch companies, and we're going to look at two of them today and kind of see some of the problems, I think, with those, some of the dangers, but also, there's some nice things to be said about them too. So specifically, we're going to be focusing today on the Megir 5005, and then I've got one other one that I picked up from there that actually didn't work, so I'm not going to focus too much on that one, but just to kind of give you an idea of some of the challenges you might run into with these watches. Let's take a look. All right, so today we're going to take a look at two watches that I picked up from a Chinese company called Megir or Megir. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. It's Megir. And these are watches that I got from a Chinese direct shipping from China company called Everbuying. It's very similar to GearBest. You can also find these watches on Amazon as well, and they are extremely cheap. Megir, I think they specialize mostly in quartz. Chronograph seems to be what most of their watches are, and they have some very clean designs, some very classic designs, some very designs that have some obvious influences towards other watches, whether or not that bothers you. But yeah, so they're one of the companies that I was interested in their watches that they had on the sites. They looked very nice, and they were available for a great price. Both of these watches I picked up for less than $20. And particularly for a chronograph that actually works, that's a pretty good deal. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at kind of both of them. We're going to spend most of the time on the chronograph, but I want to go over this one first. This is the first one that I got, and I think this will kind of highlight some of the challenges you might have and some of the things you got to be kind of careful of with these sort of really cheap Chinese watches, because this one is one that it looked really cool on the site, and it actually looks not bad in person, but once I started wearing it and using it, eventually I kind of gave up on it, and I haven't worn it anymore. And there were a lot of little flaws on it. The biggest problem that I have with it is probably that the date window, the date does not work. It changes every 2 or 3 days, and no matter what I do, I've tried just like spinning the date wheel and rotating through the month cycle like 10 times in a row to see if that kind of would get it unstuck. Nothing I could do could actually get that date working right. It'll flip over again every 2 or 3 days. So not having a functioning date was really annoying to me. The second thing that was the real deal breaker was the strap. Even though it looks great, it's a really nice thick leather strap. It's pretty comfortable. The strap is, but the buckle on it, for whatever reason, it kind of digs into my wrist and it really irritates the skin on my wrist. And so that's the only watch I've had that does that. And I just, I found I couldn't really wear it. So I would definitely have to change the strap if I was going to wear it, but because the date didn't work, I was never that motivated to do it. Other small things. So it looked like it was more of like a matte or PVD finish, but really it just looks like they've slapped some black paint over the top of the case. It's a very glossy black, so it's not like a matte color, and I feel like that's something that would chip off pretty easily. The dial face, it looked kind of cool on the site. It's got sort of a nice texture, but it just really looks kind of plasticky, which it probably is. The second hand, which it's a sub-second, which is one of the reasons I got it, because I thought that was cool. It works, but when you set the time and you push the crown back in, half the time it starts rotating backwards. So that was weird. So you'd have to pull the crown in and out a couple times until the second hand started rotating forwards. Finally, the lume is just absolutely atrocious, which is sort of ironic given that they wrote on the front of the dial luminous GMT. So both of those are misnomers. There's no GMT function at all in this watch. There's not even the GMT markings to see what the 24-hour equivalent would be, much less a second, the ability to track a second time zone. So yeah, all of those things really kind of got me sort of annoyed with this watch, where I kind of gave up on it. And it was almost a little bit surprising that I decided to give Megir a second shot with actually getting one of their chronographs. And that's the one that we'll take a closer look at in just a second here. One problem that I did have with this one has functioned perfectly fine. I haven't had any problems with it, except the battery died about 2 months after I bought it, maybe. So it was probably sitting around in the factory for a long time. Ironically enough, I wound up just switching it with the battery from this one, which I bought probably close to a year ago. And this battery was still working fine, even though the date and everything wasn't. So I just popped the battery out and put it in here. Both of these have Chinese movements inside. They're Sunan movements, Sunan quartz movements. One obviously a chronograph movement. One is a three-hand with date wheel. Anyways, let's go ahead and take a closer look at the chronograph, and I'll tell you what I think of that one. And yeah, we'll go from there. So let's jump into a closer look of the Megir M5005. All right, so as we can see, what we have here is kind of like a dress chronograph style watch. Again, this is a very inexpensive watch, and if you look closely at the details, it does tend to show, but from a distance, it's actually not a bad looking watch. It's kind of got a reverse panda dial look going on here. The top subdial is your tenths of a second, the bottom subdial is the chronograph seconds, and then the one on the left is the minutes, which is unfortunately very difficult to read with any precision. If you look at the dial closely, it does appear to be just like a plastic dial, and you can see that the printing is not that sharp, it's not that well aligned. We have some hour markers and indices. They are raised, but they're not necessarily applied, and then the little bit of paint on top of each one, it really is just paint, and it's not even centered that properly. It does not loom on the hour markers, only the hands are loomed. However, you can see there is some nice texturing on the dial, especially on the subdials, which I rather enjoy. And again, for the price that you're paying overall, it's a very nice looking watch. And yeah, I think it looks nice for, for the price. We can see it's a stainless steel case back. The case itself is said to be some kind of a plated alloy, probably brass. So no telling how long that shiny finish will last. The case or the band is a genuine leather band, crocodile embossed. It's, it feels cheap, it feels a little bit rubbery, but again, that's to be expected. Just be happy that it is actual genuine leather, which again in this price range is a plus. So it sounds like I'm complaining about a lot of these things on it, and there are a lot of things you said, but it is a sub $20 watch, and what you're getting for that price is actually not bad. The chronograph works very well. It keeps good time. The hands, I'm not a big fan of the way they look. They're kind of thick and chunky and not that precisely shaped, but they are loomed, so that's a plus. So you can see the hands in the dark, and we'll get a loom shot in a minute here, but let's talk a little bit about the chronograph. So as you can see, I've had the chronograph running this whole time, and it still is running, but the tenths of a second hand, that one will stop after 1 minute, but it is still tracking them. So when you actually press the plunger to stop the chronograph, then it will display the tenths of a second. One interesting thing is that when you do reset the chronograph, it has to go all the way back, unwind all the minutes. So if you're at like 59 minutes or something, it's going to make 59 laps around that before it does it. Speaking of the minutes hand, so that's on the left there, you can see it slowly moving around. There's no way to tell exactly what minute you're on. Those lines will indicate 15 minutes have passed, but other than that, you can't track exactly, which is one of the biggest drawbacks, I think, to this watch. It really makes the chronograph not that precise for tracking these sorts of things. Here's what the loom looks like. So, you can see it. It does have loom, but again, it's only on the hands. But it's actually a lot better than the other Megir watch that I had, the one that I didn't like. So the loom here, it actually works, so you can kind of be happy for that, but it's nothing to write home about. Okay, so that's been my review of these two Megir watches. The big question is it worth buying these watches? I would say if you know what you're getting, it's hard to say that, especially this one, like right now it's on GearBest for sale for I think $14. So this is definitely worth $14 for a working chronograph watch that doesn't look half bad, despite some of the problems with it and maybe the danger of the battery not lasting too long. I would still say that for $13 it's worth it. Now, are you the kind of person that wants a $13 watch? I would say these do tend to look like they're probably worth more money than you would spend on them, but that's not saying a whole lot. But yeah, so that would be kind of your call. Here's what I like about it. Again, kind of going back to the whole idea of why I enjoy collecting quartz watches anyways, is that, watches at that price level, I can buy a watch for a low price, and I can kind of take a risk on it. It can see, is this a style of watch that I want to wear? I'm not sure about. I'm kind of on the fence on. I can kind of get one for cheap and then try it out. And I think that's where I really like these Chinese watches. You can try out watches that are really inexpensive. Give it a try, wear it, see how it fits, see how the size works for you, see how the shape works, the functions, the complications. Try all of those things out. And then you can know, so from here, do I want to invest and spend more money? Is this something that I'll actually use, and maybe save up and get something a little bit nicer? And this is like the absolute most affordable way to do that. Now, the downside is I'm never going to be able to like resell these on eBay or something and try and get a little bit of my money back. If I ever do get a better chronograph, I'm probably just going to be giving or throwing away this old one. But then again, I only spent, I think I spent like $18 on mine or something like that. So the price kind of fluctuates a little bit. So for that, I think it's definitely worth it. Or if you're just, if you're just looking for a cheap everyday watch and you want to, kind of mix up your different styles and things, yeah, I think there are some good options out there. I think if you can find a functioning chronograph watch for under $20, I'll tell you, here's what I would definitely say don't do. Okay, so now this is another watch that I didn't buy this one. My little brother did. I think he got it on Wish for $1. And this is about as fake a watch as you can get. It has a rubber strap that's trying to look like it's a leather strap, but it's rubber. It's trying to look like it's a chronograph watch, but the subdials are decorative subdials. They're just painted on there. The pushers are just part of the case. They don't actually push anything in. Like everything about this watch is fake. It looks like it should have like a rotating bezel up here. It doesn't. It's just a complete fake, terrible watch. And this is the kind of thing that I try to avoid. And you will see watches like these. And anytime it says decorative subdials, I think for me that's a sign I'd say stay away from that. Definitely avoid these if you're looking on sites on like GearBest or even if you're going all the way down to Wish. For around $20, you can find watches with functioning chronographs, with date, with working, date complications that have kind of nice styles with actually genuine leather bands. A lot of kind of nice watches. You do have to dig around a little bit, and you got to be kind of careful. So I would say, yeah, go for it. Have a little bit of fun with it and see what kind of stuff you can get. And if you've picked up a watch that you thought this is actually really cool for the amount of money that I paid for it, drop me a comment below. Let me know which watches you found. If there's any recommendations that you have in this like really like super ultra cheap price range, around $20. What kind of stuff you guys have found, or if you have any things you'd recommend to other people. But with that, thank you guys for watching, and hope you enjoyed kind of getting a look at some of maybe a little bit different kind of watch, but I think it's, again, kind of a cool category to look at, and you can find some fun stuff there. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.